What is it to be willing? And what is it to will? Yes, Rachel. Got your mic on?
Yep. I was pondering yesterday, and this word just kept coming to me, and it was enjoy.
Yeah.
And just constantly this word enjoy, 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 and I didn't really know what it meant.
Yeah.
And then when I was pondering on it just then, it's like that when you're willing something, it's coming from a place of enjoyment. You're doing it for like the pure pleasure of it.
Mm.
Whereas to will something is like really stressful and heavy and effortful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. When I used to have a company called Enjoy. In fact, B3 events used to be called Enjoy, which was spelled I-N-J-O-Y. Enjoy. Inspiration. Okay, good. Let's keep going. I want to keep peeling back until we get to that one point, and you'll know the whole group will go, that's it. That's it. All right, everything, usually we start with versions of what it is until we get to a point, the whole group will go, yep, that's when it's willing, and that's when it is to will. John? Does anyone want to say anything before John? Because usually John just goes straight to the point and just nails it. No, I'm joking.
When you're willing, quite a few things happen, I think. I put it probably a bit like in the flow in sport. Time sort of stands still.
Yeah.
It just comes to you. It just flows naturally. It's joyful. In my case, in my experience, when I'm in there, colours intensify. There are physical characteristics as well. When you're talking, if it's a talking event, you feel connected to the audience. You can actually feel what's going on. It's a funny sort of explanation.
Yep.
And I suspect it's how people feel when they paint or they're creative. That's what it does. That's when I know that I'm in that space. It just doesn't take any effort.
Absolutely. So, two very valid points. One is, well, obviously, yes, it's you're experiencing yourself being in presence. So, in other words, if we want to put another word, you're experiencing space in time. So you have brought space into time. What does that mean? Okay, space is timeless, but when you're bringing space into time, time slows down. Now, next month, I believe we are speaking about space, and then we're finishing with the final month on truth. I don't know, that's what I feel at this stage. So we'll talk more about that, about slowing time down, right? But that's what you're doing when you're bringing space into what is, okay? Now, what is, there's two, I'm going to give you two versions of what is. There is what is with a capital I, right? And then there is what is with a small I. In other words, the finite versions of what is. And when I say what is, I'm talking about in time, in form. So this is what it is. You know, it is what it is, right? But then there is what is, ... There's nothing. This is what it is, ... There's nothing to describe or to put words into what is. In other words, truth is, love is, right? Then a version of truth is this story. So when you're bringing space, because your willingness comes from space, okay? So you can only experience your willingness when you're experiencing space. And then when you're willing, or another word, bringing form into creativity, right? In other words, you are manifesting that space into form. In other words, you are manifesting the formless into form. Now, how does the manifestation of the formless into form manifest? By you having a willingness to allow the feeling to come out. So when you are allowing the feeling to come out, which is your willingness, you are bringing space to what is. So here's what is, but when you bring space to it, it slows down. And that's what you're describing. It slows down. You see more colors. You sense more. You're more alert. You're more clear. It's not woo-woo. You know. You don't want to know. You know. It's different. Okay? Everything slows right down. Now, time is still there because you're experiencing yourself through time. But it's slowed down because you brought space into it. That's why they say time flies when you're having fun. Because when you're doing something that you enjoy, when you're doing something that you love, then you're bringing space into this moment, into what is in the story. So I'm going to describe it that way. What is in the story and what is. What is in the story is a version of what is. It's just manifests itself into a form. And in the form, there's a storyline. And for there to be a storyline, there's a past and future. And most people's lives are being determined by the storyline. But, however, when you are bringing space into the storyline, you're determining the storyline. And what was and what will be is no longer influencing what is. You are bringing space into what is. That is the only way I can describe it to you. That is the process. And how can I describe this even more? The space, which is formless, we described that the space is not necessarily the space that you experience in the emptiness of the universe. The emptiness of the universe is a reflection of the space, the formless that I'm actually talking about. Because the universe itself is not infinite because it's still expanding. Right? We've already covered that. So when the space, which is formless, begins to form itself, it doesn't use a force to manifest its formless energy or its formless space into time, into form. What it does, it's more of a vacuum. It's an allowance. Okay? So the space opens up. Now, I'm trying to describe what I'm feeling. This is very difficult, but stay with me. The space opens and it falls into form. It's not the space opens and it is forced, or a force brings it into form. Let me give you another little metaphor. The truest word that we could use is not creation, but manifestation. Because to create means there's the creator and there's the created. It's two. So the creator creates through form. Why? Because there's already created and creator. So that means there's two. So that means that they are both form. The creator is form, the created is form. Now, is the creator form? No, but you have given form to it. That's why you call it the creator. Now, whatever you call that creator could be your creativity. You might call it, I'm creating through my creativity. You may call it your expanded self. You might call it the universe. You might call it God, whatever word you have for creator. Now, manifestation, right? What you're saying, and here's some clues to where I'm going. What you're saying is, let me use the ocean, because I've used that so many times to have reference of infinity. It's as though the ocean opens up, creates a space where the ocean would then fall into and become form. Do you understand? It's not the ocean creating a tidal wave. It's the opposite. It's more of a vacuum effect. Okay, so amongst the space, an openness takes place which sucks the energy and brings it into form within itself, not outside of itself, within itself, not outside. To create is to create something outside of yourself. The ocean does not form something outside of itself. The ocean creates a space, if you like, a bubble within the ocean. And within that bubble or within that space is what we are experiencing as form. I'm trying to think of as many analogies that I can give to you here. So force is, or creation, is to attempt to create something outside of yourself. Okay? But not only are you an infinite being, you always have been an infinite being, and all that you can be is an infinite being. So you can never create something outside of yourself. Now, in the story, in the bubble, you think you're creating something outside of yourself because you think things are separate to you. An infinite being cannot create something outside of itself. Anything that it is manifesting from itself, within itself. You are experiencing yourself within the infiniteness right now. You are in it. The drop is part of the ocean. It is not separate to the ocean. It is already there. Force is to exude outwards. It is to create. To allow, right, or willingness, it's like an opening takes place within the ocean, and the ocean falls like a waterfall into a different platform, into a different form. That is the only way I can describe it. A space gets manifested amongst the space that sucks or vacuums into form. It's not... Can you get what I'm saying? Maybe. Okay, that's the description, right? That's the difficult part to understand what I'm talking about, because you have references of outside. But what I'm trying to say to you is all the outside that you're experiencing is inside. Go back to being an infinite being. An infinite being cannot manifest another infinite being. It is manifesting a perception of another being within itself. So both beings are actually infinite beings. Okay, they're not separate, they're within itself, they're within the ocean. I wish I had a camera for your faces right now. So, okay. See what you triggered off? There you go. All right, so that's another point. Let's keep going. So, you know, I think we've covered that. It's not forcing outwards, it's allowing inwards. Let's keep going. How do you know you're willing? How do you know when you are to will something? Microphone on.
Back to the feeling.
Yeah.
When I feel like I'm trying to will something, I feel really heavy.
Yes.
And I feel the more I try, the more suffocating it is.
Yep.
But when I'm willing something, it's like what you said, it's a knowing, it's a certainty. I don't have to do anything. It's just like it's already happened. I already have it.
Listen to the words. It's already happened. it's a knowing. I already have it. You've got your finger on the button there. It's already happened. So when you're experiencing willingness or to be willing, right? Where does it come from? The sense of willingness or to be willing comes from the space that I'm talking about. Within that space, I said there's only one energy, there's only one moment. What does that mean? It means that everything that ever happened, everything that ever will happen, everything that is happening in one moment. What else does it mean? It means everything that ever was manifested, everything that ever will be manifested, anything that is manifested is already manifested. It's already there. Why? Because it's infinite. That means it's all things exist. Infinite means existence. Within existence, all things exist. Not just one thing, all things. All things exist in one moment. One energy, one moment. How many times have you heard me say that? One energy, one moment. Therefore, when you are experiencing a willingness, you're willing something that's already done. That's when you experience, when I go back to my surface talks in Intuitive Warrior, I go to people, who's ever felt a moment where they felt like something was going to happen, or, and they don't know why they know. Now, if you're willing to follow that feeling, in other words, and I say yes to the feeling, welcome to the expression of willingness. That's why I say, if you feel something, it's already done. It's impossible not for it to happen. It's already done. All you have to do is choose to say yes to the feeling. In other words, you choose to follow the feeling. The moment you choose to follow the feeling, you're experiencing willingness. Now, most people, when I talk about willingness, they think, I need to be willing. Can you see the confusion? I need to be willing. I need to have more will. And they're trying to create force to be more willing, or to have greater will. They're trying to force it. Okay, Rachel?
You said infinite is everything. So everything's already been manifested. So it's not about willing the manifestation because it's already manifested. It's just about that willingness. Okay,
let me go further. Because it's like, okay, I feel the willingness, but what do I got to do with the willingness? Right? The ego wants to hijack. Because remember, ego goes into doing mode. Okay, so I feel the willingness, what do I do? Right? If you go back to the moments in your lives where you've felt willingness, a willingness, right? You didn't feel the need to do something. You didn't feel the need to pursue something to do. This is the best way I can describe it. And then we can talk about, well, how do you find more willingness? Which is very simple. The question really asking is, how do I have more space? Which I've covered in every single month. You just got to keep going back. I won't go into that right now, okay? Because that's the real question you're going to ask. It's not how do I find more willingness. Spoke about in wealth, the month wealth 2 months ago. You don't run out of wealth, you don't run out of money, you run out of space. And then the question came, Well, how do I find more space? Said the ego. It's not about finding more space. It's about letting go of the things that take up space and realizing that you already have space. That's what it's about. So, Rachel said,
Everything's already been manifested.
okay. What are we talking about today? Willingness. Willingness. So this is what it feels like, right? You've all described, yes, it's light, yes, it's not ego, yeah, we can describe all that, right? I spoke about in previous months that when you were a kid or earlier on in your journey, a better reference, there was things in your life that caused you to have reactions, right? And you want to act on them, okay? Space is not about acting, it's about allowing. It's about letting it unfold, it's about letting it morph. You're morphing it. You're morphing the feeling from formless to form, okay? It's not about action. Although there may be action coming through you, but it's not you acting. There may be speaking coming through you or speaking coming through you, but it's not you speaking. There may be writing coming through you, painting coming, you get the point. But it's not you painting. And I asked this question to you guys. How many times further down your journey, you're like 9, 10 months on your journey, or some of you a couple of years on your journey, or wherever you are, you notice that you used to react about a certain thing. And now that certain thing no longer causes you to have a reaction or experiencing a lack of space. Everyone's experienced that. Yeah, that used to make me really angry, or used to really cause a lot of time in thinking about it, and a lot of suffering, a lot of resistance. But it doesn't anymore. And we said, why? And we said, because now you have more space. You have more space. And because you have more space, you no longer, the fear is this big, but if your space has become as big as this room, how much suffering is it causing you? Nothing, it's almost irrelevant. It's just this little dot in this room. Your space became bigger. Your fear didn't become smaller. The space became bigger. When I went flying for the first time in 16 years, it was just a couple of weeks ago. And took off the plane, did the whole thing, had an instructor next to me, as I just covered before. And I was coming into land. This is the first weekend of flying, first 1 or 2 times. And I was coming into land, this plane, and I've been landing at this airport, Bankstown Airport. I've done it many times, right? But for the first time, I'm coming in and I felt relaxed, right? And I looked to my left as I'm coming in, I'm like, oh wow, I can see the whole ocean. I can see the whole city. I can see Sydney Airport. I can see the whole harbour. I have never noticed that. And I'm thinking, could I have always seen the airport and seen the harbour on my left? Because Bankstown's more to the west, you don't see it as much, right? And I was like thinking, maybe it's just a clear day. But I never noticed that. Why? Because normally when I came to land, I get so concentrated and so fixated on landing the plane that I don't notice the beauty around me. You see? 16 years later, I'm coming to land the plane. Yes, I'm still focusing and concentrating, but because I have more space, I have a sensation of being more relaxed and noticing, wow, look at this. And I'm having a conversation with the instructor. What a beautiful day. And we're having a conversation, just chit chat while we're landing the plane. Normally, I wouldn't be doing any of that. I'll be doing this, sweat, doing continuously focusing and concentrating. But here's my point. My point is what? I haven't flown for 16 years. You would think I would be worse, or if at the very best, I would pick up where I left off. Why am I more confident? Why do I have more comfort? Why do I notice the beauty around me when I'm coming to land, where before I didn't? I never noticed. Hey, you know how many times I landed at Bankstown Airport? I'd never noticed that you could see the city, the harbour. Never noticed it, ever. I knew it was out there. On my left, as I'm coming in runway 11, I know it's my left. But I never noticed it. Why? Space. Not because I did more training. I haven't trained for 16 years. Recently, I'm trying to get you to sense where willingness goes. Don't go to the space where there is no space and try to find willingness, because that's you trying to will it. All right, let me give you the sensation of what it feels. And you will know, because there's times where you would have said what I'm about to say to you. Sally and I, my girlfriend, we recently decided to move from where we live. And we live in a 3-bedroom apartment overlooking the ocean. It's a beautiful house. There's no reason to move out, okay? But we feel we want to get maybe a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom house, and maybe still overlooking the ocean, but something bigger, have a garden, and maybe I could have an end of OMG barbecue at my house. Maybe have some friends over, have some social events. Because where we live right now, although it's beautiful, it's a 3-bedroom apartment. We want to get a house, something with a big garden, and we can do an end of year OMG barbecue or something. I would love to do that. I can't where I live. That's all. So there's no need for me to move out from where I am right now. You're not going to move out just so you can have end of year social gatherings, right? There's no need for me to move out where I am. I love where I am. So why do we then choose to move out and double our expenses? Double the expenses, more than double the expenses. Why would you do that? Here's the thing. Because I can. How many times in your life have you said, because I can? Now let's get clear about what I mean about because I can. It is not because I can, because now I'm financially stable. And before I wasn't. It's not because I can, because my income from my organization is, or my salary is this much amount. No, that's not even why. Because my salary would just probably, cover the rent. That's not it either. So if you get my point, it's not because I can see something in the story. It's because I feel space. And amongst the space, I feel the deservingness of it. Because whenever you feel space, you feel like you deserve. Remember my mum earlier OMGs, my mum used to tell me, Amir, don't feel sorry for people. You're always trying to help them, but you're taking away from them. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, they don't have, because they don't have space. They don't have space because they don't deserve. The more space you feel, the more you feel like you deserve. Right? And the only feeling that I can leave you with, or it's because I can. But because I can is because the truth is, like full stop. There's nothing after is. So because I can, full stop. It's not because I can because of my income. Because I can because now I believe. No. Because I can because now I know, not believe. But the best way to put it is put a stop there. Because I can. Or sometimes people will go, how do you know what you're talking about to be true? You know what answer comes to me? Because I know. Full stop. How many times have you said, because I know? I'm just giving you how I know when I'm actually willing something, when the willingness, when I am conscious, because you're willing things all the time, you're just not aware of it. But it's when you become aware or conscious of it that you actually start using it consciously. It's like flying the plane on autopilot. Most of us are on autopilot. But then you start to become aware of how the plane actually flies. Then you can switch the autopilot off and fly the plane yourself. So what I'm describing, you're already doing, you just don't know, or you're just not conscious of how you're doing it. You need to first know how to land the plane and fly the plane and maneuver the plane before you turn the autopilot off. And that's what you're doing right now. Because I can, full stop. Because I know, full stop. Only a couple months ago, I felt, okay, this is where the willingness starts to happen. See, I've always loved flying. Always. Always loved flying. But why didn't I fly? Why haven't I flown for 16 years? I haven't had enough space for me to do what I love to do to that degree. I've had enough space for me to do what I love to do here. But then you know what started to take up space for me to do what I love to do? I begin to fall in need of doing what I love to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? So at first you start to find what you love to do, but then you think it's because of you doing what you love to do that you are financially stable, because you know, that's what's giving you purpose, whatever you want to call it. Then you fall in need of doing that. So then that starts to take up space again. If you've been with me for a little while and observed my journey, in particular this year, right, you've noticed that I have been doing less of what I love to do. Right? If you saw me last year, I was speaking every single weekend in a different city. There was a part of me that was beginning to fall in need of doing. Now, I'm not saying someone who's doing that is falling in need, but I was. I needed to do that. Like I loved what I do, but I needed to continue to do that in order for me to love what I do, if that makes sense. But if you notice this year, I started to do less and less of it because I started to feel less the need to do what I love to do. Does that make sense? Hang on one sec, right? As I started to feel less need to do what I love to do, I began to experience what I love for what it was, for what it is. Full stop. It is what it is. The big is. That then made more space. This year, I've found more space. As I found more space, I found more parts of myself. Oh, I love to fly. So here's the thing. 2 months ago, I felt I love to fly. And I told Sally, I think I'm going to start flying again because I just felt out of nowhere, I love to fly. Now, I haven't felt that for a long time. It's been somewhere buried underneath all the need of doing what I love to do. Right? Now, nothing wrong with doing the need of what I love to do because that's part of my journey. But as I no longer need to do what I love to do, more space opens up. I experience what I love for what it is, not for what I need it to be. More space opens up. I feel like I love flying. I just noticed that. 2 months later, one of our associates, one of the guys who do our social media, I was wanting to catch up with her, and she says, "Oh, I can't. I'm flying." I go, "Where are you flying to?" She goes, "Oh, I'm doing my first pilot class, training to be a pilot." I told her, "Bring the pilot school now and book me in as well." So why did I start flying? Because I can. You see, that's the only way for me to experience of when I know I'm willing something. I feel because I can. I'm trying to make this clear because that you may have moments, and probably at this stage you may have more moments, where you think to yourself, well, I can't, so therefore I need to will it more. No, if you feel like you can't, you need to make more space, because trying to will it will only consume more space. It's the opposite. Then suddenly it finds you, like I always say, love is something that finds you. Suddenly it hits you. I become aware that I love to fly. Did I act on anything? No. Did I talk about acting on something? Yeah, I probably did. I think I had a conversation with Jamie. Oh, I just got a feeling of love to fly. He goes, "Oh, I used to always watch Top Gun when I was a kid." And we had a little conversation. But that was it. Didn't go on the internet to Google or nothing. Then the next feeling came. Now, in this way, the feeling came through the story. Somebody said something, and I went, I felt that before, book it in. But that's all I can describe it to you. Willingness feels like because I can. How do you know that? Because I know. So what I'm talking to you right now about, you might just say, well, how do you know that? How do you know, especially before, we were just talking about before, how do you know that when you're manifesting, it's a vacuum effect? If I was to describe it. It's not a forceful, how do you know? Because I know. Did I know that before? No. Because I know, full stop. Because I can. How do I know I can get up on stage tomorrow and speak? Because I know. Because I can. When I'm coming to land the plane, right, I know I can land it. Now, the knowing is not from past experience, although past experiences will help you, give you reference points. But this is what I'm saying, the knowing is not reference from the story. Because you can is not reference from the story. That's not the real one. Because I can is, I don't know, I just feel like I can. I don't understand why you can't. That's the kind of reference point you have. Now, your reference points of the moments that you couldn't will give you an understanding and compassion to the person who can't. Because they're like, oh yeah, I understand why they can't. Because I was like that too. Who knows what I'm talking about when I say because I can or because I know? Put your hand up. Okay, so you've all had moments of that. Because I can. But it's not because of the story. See, sometimes when people say because I can, it's because, well, I've worked hard on my whole life and da-da-da, and I've sold my company for $6 million. Da-da. Well, now I can do these things. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Microphone, please. Is it still there?
Probably not as significant.
It was the need of love.
It was this. You were saying something which at first I didn't agree with, but then later on I realized we were just saying it different ways.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter.
So say what it was, because it might have other people
Okay, so I think you said that you were doing what you loved, but then you stopped doing what you loved, which was going out every weekend and talking. And then I thought, and then you said you needed it, so you stopped doing it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my thought was, perhaps what was happening was that you were starting to find other things that you loved, which is what you ended up saying with the flying and everything else. So it felt like you were still doing what you loved, but the talks were not necessarily the one thing you loved. You were loving to do something else, or wanting to do something else.
Okay, let me tell you my process around that, and then you can pick up what you want from it. So, I love speaking, very inspired for sharing this message and more importantly about connecting to the message. So whether that's by myself or sometimes with other people, like right now in the group. So I began to do it, right? And then because I loved it, I wanted to do it more, right? So I'm starting to put power into it, even though I know that it's not what I'm doing that I love, it's who I'm being, all right? But I'm starting to put power into it because I'm thinking, well, I love it, I want to do it more. I remember Mum used to say, Amir, don't put too much energy into that. We only have 24 hours in a day. 8 hours is for work, 8 hours is for play, 8 hours is for sleeping. You're not getting 8 hours sleeping, all right? You're out of balance, right? So, and at this stage, I was just traveling and I loved it. I loved the traveling. I loved getting on planes. People go, you travel a lot. You're like, does it really? I love it. I love traveling. So as I'm doing this, I noticed that the more I did it, the more purposeful I felt. The more, so I'm starting to place some meaning from doing this. Now I know, right, that it's not this. I know that purpose is in who I am, right? And I give purpose to what I do. How do I know that? Because I know, all right? So I want to really start to practice that. Anyway, I just kept speaking every weekend. And then one day, all right, I didn't feel inspired to speak every weekend. And I'm like, now here's the thing, what I want to make clear. I didn't find other things that I loved. It's not what happened, right? I just didn't feel inspired to speak every weekend. So then, I'm a massive believer that you got to follow the feeling, as you know. Like I know I have to follow the feeling, even though it didn't make sense, because I love doing it, but now I'm not feeling inspired to get up there every weekend. And I felt less need to do that. The need started to go away of me getting up on stage every weekend. Now, in the story, I've described this. Our business model relies on me doing that, right? But I don't feel true to do that. So I cut all my I didn't speak for 6 months, okay? And even now that I'm speaking tomorrow, for the first time, I'm doing an Intuitive Warrior, and I'm doing an Intuitive Warrior on Saturday in LA because I'm going to be there, and then I'm doing 2 WTFs, one in Sydney, one in LA, right? I don't feel to do any more after that. I might not do another one for 6 months. Okay? So my point is this. I first followed the feeling. And the feeling was I didn't feel inspired. I didn't feel, another word for inspiration is moved. I didn't feel moved. So I stopped doing it. Right? Do I still love doing it? Yes. That's why I'm getting up tomorrow and doing one. Did I still feel moved to do OMG? Yes. There's one thing that I definitely did. I say did, because do I continue to feel moved to do OMG next year? No. I felt halfway in this month, and I told my team, no more OMG, that's it. And anyone else who wants to join OMG can only sign up for 6 months, because after this year, it's finished. There's no more OMG. Well, there's no more live OMG. It's all online. Will I feel moved to do OMG again? Maybe. But my feeling is, if I do, I will do 12 days back to back. Right? But anyway, that's another thing. That only came to me the other day. I reckon I'm going to do an OMG 12 days. You know, maybe make it a 2-week program, and everyone comes in, and it's like 12 days back to back, covering each day, right? Like a retreat style kind of thing. Anyway, getting off track. But my point is this: I first followed the feeling, right, of what I felt moved to do. Then space started to open up. Now, in the story, I started to work less. I started to work not as hard. Okay? And as I started to do that, in the story, now I don't know my financials as much as Ryan does, how much our turnover is, because he'll probably tell you when I stopped speaking, our turnover dropped. Because I once asked him, and he goes, yeah, our turnover. And I was like, really? Because the funny thing is, I just kept having more and more space. My lifestyle kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, because I'm living more, you know, fruitfully. And he's like, nah, turnover has definitely dropped, and the company's gone down a notch. Can you see what I'm saying? So space started to open. Then I started to feel, I want to play tennis. Like, where the hell did that come from? I just suddenly felt to play tennis. And we started to play tennis. And like now I play 2-3 times a week, and I love it. Can you see what I'm saying? It's just, then I started to become aware of some of the other things that I love to do. I remember people used to ask me in interviews, what are your hobbies? And I just go, being on the beach, because that's one thing I love doing, being on the beach. But I love being on the beach in the mornings because I get to ponder. It's all truth related, right? I said I like to exercise. I love going to the gym and doing CrossFit training. But then I used to think to myself, I really don't have any other hobbies. It's not like I went looking for hobbies. I'm just following the feeling. But following the feeling is, go back one step. I found what I really feel true and inspired to do. I started to do it. And I was like, well, I love this. So the ego hijacks. Well, obviously I've got to do more of it. Obviously I've got to become successful at it. Obviously I've got to become a brand. So why? So I can keep it. So I can keep this experience of loving what I do. So then I slowly began to fall into needing what I love to do. Because if I no longer do this, then I won't have what I love. You see? So then I realized that. Now, I didn't realize that, right? Although my mum said that, I didn't realize it. I just started, what I did realize is I didn't feel inspired to get up there every weekend anymore. So I followed that feeling, and now I look back over the last 9 months, I can tell you when I did that, I noticed the space became bigger. And like I said, even in the story, we stopped selling OMG. OMG was our source of income. Our main, probably I would say 70 to 80% of income came from this product. We stopped selling it. I don't know, you see, I don't look at the turnover, right? I have an awareness, but I really don't, it's not a reference point for me. So all I felt was living more fruitfully. If the income's gone down, how can I then go, well, I'm going to go move into a much bigger home. It's more than double the cost. How could I do that? All I can tell you, that's why I know it's not because of the story. Because I can. So it didn't make sense when Ryan told me, no, our income's dropped. Like, it's gone backwards, our turnover. And I was just like, that doesn't make sense. Now, if I wanted to make sense of it, I could. I'll go into the story. How has our income dropped and I'm living more fruitful? Oh, we used to have all these events and they used to cost us this much and that's dropped too. And you can find answers. Whatever you seek for, you'll find. But that's not the truth. The truth is there's more space. So to make it clear, I began to become aware of other things that I love because there was more space. There was more space because I let go of the need of doing what I love to do. First step is doing what you love to do. First step is doing what's true for you. But I'm just pointing out what you're going to find, or if you haven't found it already, on your path, you will get to a point where you go, oh, I love doing this, and then you just get, boom, like it's just what you got to do. No, slow down, okay? Because you find the need. You fall back into need.
It's so perfect that we're having this conversation right now, because over the last couple of years I've been doing this job and I completely loved it, and I always said that in the last 2 months it's gone completely the other way.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand what happened, and now I get it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
When we were talking about the willing and the will, what kept on coming to me with the willing is just being in the natural state
Yes.
of who we really are, the infinite being. And then when we're the will or willing something, it's the small, what do you call it? The
finite?
Not the ocean, but the drop.
The drop.
The drop.
And it's the drop looking for the infinite, for the grandness in the story.
Yeah.
So it is motivated by something in the story, because we are all looking for one thing, and we are looking for ourselves. That's why we're here, and it's in you. You are looking because you perceive that there's something missing, something's not whole, something's not complete. So you are looking, but because you only know form, you look for form. So you need motivation, for example, to grow a company. Then you feel, whatever, expansive, or remember, recognition, appreciation, acceptance, approval, and security. Those are the things that we're always looking for. And those are the things that you already have within who you are, but when you don't know who you are, the drop is looking for those through form. And that's why it needs to be motivated, and it puts meaning on things. Well, if only I can get married, then I will have love. So, and what is that love? It's a version of yourself that you're finding in another person. Now, because you think the other person is another person, it stays a version. But when you realize who you are, you realize who the other person is. And then you can really experience love for yourself first, in yourself, as who you are, and then you experience that being reflected in the other person. I'll probably talk more about that in truth in the final month.
The word human being just came into my head, and that's it, human being, not the doing.
Yeah.
Back to free will. I thought that free will means the choice for us to say yes or no to the feeling. But what you said before, it was something else. Oh, I understood.
It's like flying the plane, right? The plane really has free will. No, not the plane, but whoever's the pilot has free will. But when you don't know that you're the pilot, you're experiencing yourself as a passenger on the plane, right? The passenger doesn't have free will because the passenger is being taken wherever the plane is taking it. Until the passenger realizes, I'm not the passenger, I'm the pilot. But momentarily, you think you're the passenger. So the truth with a capital T is, you've always had free will, you always will have free will, and you do have free will. That's the truth, right? However, you're experiencing yourself at the moment not being the truth, but being a version of the truth. So there's the truth, and then there's you. So therefore, everything is on autopilot. The sun is coming up by itself, the tides are changing, your next breath comes in, your heart's beating, your blood cells, and everything's doing what it's meant to do. The animal kingdoms are doing things right now, the tides are changing, everything's just taking care of itself, everything's on autopilot, right? And everything in your life is on autopilot. And what you're doing is becoming aware of what you're experiencing. Is what you're experiencing who you are? No, you're becoming aware of the experience. And as you fall deeper and deeper into who you are, you start to realize who is actually watching. You think it was you that was experiencing. You think you are the experience itself. My point is, you come to a point where you realize, I am the pilot. And I've always been flying this plane. But for momentarily, I thought I was the passenger sitting next to me. But there is no passenger sitting next to you. So you've always had free will, you always will, okay? But you're having an experience of not having free will. But in your experience of not having free will, you think that you do have free will. You know, you're sitting there with a pilot and you're flying the plane, you're like, yeah, I'm flying this plane. But really, secretly, the pilot is flying the plane. It's like when on Sunday I went to fly and Jamie wanted to experience this, so he came out and he went for a flight as well. He took his first flight, and when I landed, they made me hold short of a runway because it was a plane landing. So as I was watching the plane land, it was Jamie. It was Jamie's plane. So he landed and they got off the runway and we came right behind them. So we left at the same time, we came back at the same time. And Jamie came out and was like, man, I flew the plane. And it was like, it was so awesome. And he goes, the pilot let me land it. Like he did right to the very end. I was like, oh my God, he's letting me land. He says, right to the very end. And right at the very end of the touchdown, he took over. But I landed the plane. Now, I know, right, that the instructor's sitting there and he's got control of the rudder and he's doing a bit of the power because but it's designed for Jamie to think he landed it. But he didn't land that plane. Can you see what I'm saying? He thinks he landed it. And I was like, well done, Jamie, that's awesome. Right? But it's designed for you to think that you landed it. All right? But the captain's actually sitting there and, because he's got rudders too, he's not touching the control panel. He's letting Jamie do the turns, right? But you can turn the plane by yawing it too. And Jamie will turn a little bit, he'll press a little bit of the rudder, and he'll probably play with the power a bit because the power will determine your height. Sorry, Jamie, you weren't flying the plane yet. Jamie will watch this. Sorry, mate, you weren't flying the plane. But you will one day, I promise you. Yeah. But that's, there's no way, trust me, I've landed the plane by myself, and it's, it's not that hard, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into it. So, but that's just a little analogy. Jamie thinks he was flying the plane, right? But he wasn't. The captain was flying the plane, but it was his first lesson. So the idea is for Jamie to have as much experience as he can. So he's coming on the approach and all that kind of stuff. And the pilot's telling him, turn right now and turn this, but that's as far as you're doing. But there's far more than that goes that. And this is just your perception. You can perceive what you see, you can perceive how it is, but you're not in control of the plane. But in the story, it's designed for you to think you are, because it makes the experience far more real. So Jamie came out, I was so cool, wait until the pilot actually lets him land it. All over the place like me. So that's to answer your question. So all you're doing is, as you go deeper and deeper into who you are, you begin to become aware of your free will. And you notice when you're willing something. And it's just that it's because I can. That's when you know, that's when you're conscious of it. When you're conscious of it, you just feel, because I can. Because I know. That's all you feel. And you can only sense that in the space. It's seriously, I'm glad next month is about space. I've got no idea what I'm going to be talking about it when I'm talking about space. It might not even be space, but at this stage it feels like, it's funny because I never know what the next month is going to be. That's why you've never heard me say it. But last week it came to me, this month, I knew this month was will, and that's all I focus on, month by month. But this last week it was like will, space, truth. It just went boom, boom, boom. Now, am I focused and fixated on that? No. But that's what came to me. So most probably that's what's going to happen. But if I become fixated, oh my God, it's going to be on truth, it's going to be this, and I start planning it, I've lost it. So to answer your question, you become aware of your free will. You know, you become conscious. You become conscious of yourself using it. But free will, remember, is not the same as what your mind thinks. Mind thinks free will means I am deciding upon something. But we have already discovered, and we've already spoken about this in previous months, the part of you that's infinite doesn't make decisions of should I not. The part of you that's infinite, the only way that's to describe free will, the decision is made. You see? The decision is made. So the part of you that's going, well, I need to decide on doing this or not doing this, that's not free will anyway. That's always influenced. The only thing that you want to do is decide, use your tool here to decide to follow the feeling. In other words, to decide to follow the decision that's already made. See, that decision's already made. All you do is become noticed that I've decided this. All I do is become aware that I'm going to start flying. Now, if in most people's case, they will feel like, oh, I love to fly again. Suddenly out of the blue. Then they start to think about it. Does that mean I'm going to start flying? I can't afford that. Well, can I dedicate this much money into this right now? Well, maybe that money should be going into an investment right now. All kinds of, you see? That the difference between me and that person is I just go, yes, I'm doing this. But it can't be woo-woo. This can't say, yes, I'm doing what I'm feeling here. This says yes to the feeling, not yes, I am doing it. This says yes to the feeling. And then what the feeling, which is again your free will, when it comes up next, it acts on what it comes up next. There's no thinking about it. Most people go, oh, I feel this. I feel it. You get ready for the woo-woo? You ready? Oh, I feel this in me. I feel the possibilities. Then this decides to do. Hang on. You got to come back. Yeah. This goes, all right, and then looks for the motivation and forcing it to happen because it's doing it without this. And then it becomes woo-woo because this is doing now. But I felt to do it. Okay, well, go say yes to the feeling, not yes to the doing. The doing will come through you. Biggest woo-woo on this journey that you'll find. I find it with every single person, including myself. One of the biggest things I at first it's just like, I can do it, and it's just a struggle because this is doing it. What is this? The drop. The drop is trying to move the whole ocean. Woo-woo. No, the drop has to say yes to the ocean, which allows it to be the ocean, and the ocean then moves the drop. You're still experiencing yourself as a drop, but you're like, I don't even know where these words are coming from. I don't know how that all came into fruition. You're just like, oh, it's just coming through you. You see the difference? One is willing, one is to will. Now, I'm sure you have to all go down the path of being woo-woo. That's why I talk about it a lot. Because everyone kind of goes there, because everyone intellectualizes this at the beginning. But just keep going. When you do the woo-woo stuff, it doesn't work. You'll hit a dead end, you'll hit a wall, get yourself back up and go again. You didn't come here to hit walls. You're just using the walls to make you stronger, to make your will greater. In other words, you become aware of your great will. Because to make your will greater is not the right terminology. Got to watch what I say. Sandy will pick me up on it. No, it's spot on. It's spot on. I'm just joking, Sandy. It is spot on. It is spot on. So, So the right terminology there, if I can just put the most truest form, is that you become aware of how great your will is. You're not making your will great. You become aware of how expanded you are. You are not expanding. And I thought meaning and purpose, there's nothing else to talk about after that. Remember that? It was like, well, there's nothing else to talk about after that. And then came will. I reckon we can go for another 12 months after this. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. And I'm not giving you any more homework, I don't think. All right? But there's no homework, there's no more, this is what I want you to do over the break. What I would love for you to do is to do whatever you feel moved to do with yourself still. So, you know, when it comes to sitting by yourself or being by yourself, and just, and I'm not going to give you any guidance. You know, I'm not necessarily talking about doing what you feel moved to do. Okay, well, I haven't seen what's going on Facebook, or, you know, I've got to make a lot of work calls, or, you know, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually saying sit by yourself, have your lunch, you know, you can have your lunch together and all that kind of stuff, but just have some time by yourself, but there's no instruction. Just see what comes to you by yourself. Not thinking, pondering. What's the difference between thinking and pondering? Thinking, the thoughts are doing the thinking. Pondering, the feeling is using the thoughts. The plan is unfolding through you. The feeling is using the thoughts. And you're having realizations. So everything you think about has a space or a feeling that comes with it. When you're thinking here, everything that you think about has a lack of space or an emotion that comes with it. And that's the difference between the pondering and the thinking. Pondering is light, thinking is heavy. A lot of this work, a lot of this path, for me anyway, has been about pondering. Pondering, 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 pondering. I continuously ponder. Just ponder. And it just comes to me effortlessly now. It's just, I'm continuously just noticing what I'm pondering.